also the renewal, okay? And so Carnival, and I think Charissa is also going to be talking about that, Carnival is also a moment of, let's say, a feast, right? And it says farewell to the flesh. So it's a sort of abundance, sort of extra. So that's why in the French countries or in the French islands, they would always talk about, you see it in New Orleans and Trinidad, of and Sunday would be then Dimanche Gras, and Tuesday would then be Mardi Gras, right? I don't know. I don't know the exact French pronunciation, but it means Fat Tuesday. All right. So it's clear. Carnival, Carnavalesque. All right. So this is some of the critique that we have on Carnival and the Carnavalesque, and Terry Eagleton is one of them, but there are many other theorists as well that have critique or actually look at Carnival from another perspective, which means basically they talk about a steam valve theory in which you actually sort of have a pot of boiling water that is covered. And Carnival is a sort of a moment where by the authorities, the lid is actually taken off to release the steam so that it doesn't cause riot, confusion in society. So in other words, it's a form of control, okay? That would then be the other perspective. So while we jumping and breaking away, there's other stuff happening as well. But we're not paying attention because we jumping and breaking away. Okay, so to use the word breakaway. So I worked on a concept for my PhD, and I worked out I theorized the concept of breakaway. And breakaway to me is actually one of the forms of, let's say, a maxim of pleasure, and also embedded in breakaway, there's also forms of critique. And to be able to explain that a bit better, I want to share a few examples of what I mean with breakaway, or what sweet breakaway is, and then I'm going to go over to giving examples of how this also includes resistance. Okay. All right, so breakaway is an English Creole or Caribbean English notion derived from the term breakaway used by road march calypso singers in Aruba and in the rest of the Caribbean to indicate the climax, the mambo of the song, where everyone in the crowd is encouraged to let loose and free up. Okay? Or what can be described as break with the indirect experience of reality through the dynamics of symbolization. So in other words, in the Aruban English-speaking community, expressions such as, that was a sweet breakaway, she breaking away in a party, are very common. In a sense, it seemed like another gear, a sixth gear, so to speak, within the road march calypso space. Let's just hope it's a passing cloud. So when we look at breakaway, I make a comparison of breakaway with some of the French literature, French postmodern literature of Roland Barthes, in which he actually looks at concepts of pleasure, plaisir, and jouissance. In Barthes' work, we see jouissance described as the highest form of joy or bliss. So I compare breakaway with these ideas. Or in some translations as a symbolically unmediated sexual orgasm. So in Barthes' publication, The Pleasure of Text, he alludes to jouissance as being totally free, but yet indescribable in words. So when we experience a breakaway, we are completely free. Okay? And one cannot describe this in our regular vocabulary. So, in other words, as being in a state where all barriers, classes, exclusions, syncretism do not exist. A space, yes, a space, yes,
Yeah.
A space. 1 second.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Can you hear me? Still. Yes. 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 Just 1 second. Yellow. Yes.
One.
Yes. 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 All right. We can continue. All right. I'll just continue and just hope that it passes. So yeah, so that you have an idea that the breakaway, the plaisir, and the jouissance is actually the idea of experiencing a sort of an extreme form of pleasure that is also oftentimes actually we're not able to describe this in words. So a good example of what a breakaway is I refer to, I give an example, for example, of the Trinidadian calypsonian, David Rudder, in his song Madness. he describes a scene of what a breakaway is like. I'll let you listen to a part of it. You're going by the HDMI. Tell me how to do it. Wait a minute. Yes. Yeah? Right click. This one? Open setting, yeah. Only going to the pin.
All right, so bear with us just a couple of seconds as we get Gregory set up for the breakaway. Hey, we just sit back, relax, and we'll get right to it. Those who are listening on the radio, we are still here, and we're coming through live from Chocolate City, San Nicolas, the sunrise city of the island of Aruba. So just so you guys know. All right, we're good, up and ready to go. Take it away, Greg.
I jumped the wall about 12 o'clock and I gone inside. Stand up there and the people spent me eye open wide. Everybody inside there like they fetting hard. But when I watch out their faces, mama, yo, like they're going mad. It must be the budget that the man from Whitehall did read. Cause all of them inside are there like they suck a crazy seed. That kind of head couldn't come from weed. This is not a fet in here, this is madness. This is not the kind of jam where you stab like a choopity begging for mercy. This is not a fet in here, this is madness. Ay, 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 ay. Everybody mad. Ay, 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 ay. Hey, we're going.
So when you listen to the lyrics, actually, he's actually saying, and in one of the scenes, so he describes a scene of a party where he goes to a party and everyone is as if they're gone mad. And that's the breakaway scene. So he says, one of the scenes, if you see the glasses thing, the one who does lying or hang out with Brown, the same one who used to walk the road like she can't touch the ground. Since she lost, she Texico walk, but if you see the child, getting all kind of wild and wassy like wassy going out of style. Brown hold on his head and ball, how he feeling shame, how she have about, and she went to Holy Name, that's a Catholic school, I think, in Trinidad. Same time, an ex-dude man passed and gone with the dame. And dude, I think it's the Selimar, right? From Trinidad. So then he says, this is not a fet in here, this is madness. This is not a fet in here where you're going to stand up like a stupidity, begging for mercy. This is not a fet in here, this is madness. And then he says, ay, 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 everybody mad. And then where we going? St. Anne's. And St. Anne's is the Respaldo from Trinidad. Okay. Opa. What is this now? Okay, so a few examples of breakaway would be then what happens, for example, in the Juve. Some images of people breaking away. Winding up on a police officer breaking away. Getting on bad in Carnival, breaking away. So, okay, this all seems nice and everything. But when we look at, for example, other aspects, we notice that there's commercialization and exclusionary practice. So, well, it ain't so democratic anymore, as they would say. One, financial constraints. Not everyone is able to participate in Carnival. So what is supposed to be a sort of a democratic space, now money determines in a sense who can participate and who cannot participate. You also have the phenomenon of the barricade. So as you see here, this image, this Carnavalista is actually on the main stage on the pasarela, and everyone is behind the barricade. So in a sense also sort of an exclusionary practice. The famous carvel. Okay, so not everyone is able to get a space. You have to have the financial means, and some would even say the connections, but I don't know anything about that. Furthermore, there's also the phenomenon of pay-per-view. So in a sense, the commercialization of certain events, you can pay, and not everyone is able to afford to be or to be able to have access to these events. And of course, the famous sponsorship, exclusive sponsorship, for example, where particular sponsors sponsor certain events, and of course, this also, it means that you buy their product and there's a sort of a focus on certain things, and then other groups as well of other people perhaps maybe are not able to participate in that process. So there's also this taking place as well. I'm going to give you a few examples of some of the, let's say, the dichos, the quotes that we often hear in our society. Just now, we're going to have to pay for Juve. Have you ever heard of that? Or have you said that? Okay. Have you ever heard of Nosa sold out Kaba? My Carnival group already sell out, okay. They're taking everything out of San Nicolas. All right. Have you ever heard this one? Nós está grupo de doctor e abogado. Yeah? All right. Another one, Nanta barra em nível de nos carnaval. Certain groups, okay. Eta hopi slordig. Okay. Pero hindi playa só tá ganhando eleição de reina. Hindi Tivoli e Club Caribe. Have you ever heard that one? Now you would hear this one. Boy, they look so wrong. Nanta Bucci. They're making us look bad. Nos grupo tem erco tem banho. You ever heard that one? I ain't saying no names. And the famous one, se o sapato não está klop com o vesti, não mag de participar. So these are all indicators of we may mag doen and we niet may mag doen. And not saying that you're not allowed to participate, they're just saying this is exclusive and it's not. So when we look at breakaway, we also see, as I said, jouissance, also acts of resistance. So human beings, even though there are exclusionary practices, historically, human beings and people of this area of the Caribbean have always found forms to resist and create their own space, despite marginalization. So I'm going to give you a few examples. So, as I said, at least one of the examples is at least the breakaway can embody a more devastating critique of dominant discourses in many ways. Even though it may seem, for example, as we jam in, it's pleasure and everything, but even more so, even the act of enjoyment is perhaps even more devastating as a critique than, for example, if I'm criticizing something directly. Okay? So There's breakaway possibly creates a space for liminal advancements to comunitas, and Francois Guadeloupe and calls this a sort of a soca humanism, so a togetherness. And now I'm going to give you a few examples of how pleasure can be seen as resistance. I've given this example a few times already. The idea of pretty mass and dirty mass. Dirty mass is a form of, I'm going to enjoy my carnival the way I want to enjoy it, and you can't tell me nothing about it. So on the eve of Juve, you always have a sort of these fancy balls, right? Enclosed in, let's say, in a specific area. Now, would be masquerade and so forth. It has a long history in the French Caribbean and also in Southern Europe. So what the slaves would do, they would mock the shongs and their wives and so forth, and create their own party on the street. And this would be then the juxtaposition of pretty mass and dirty mass. We don't got no behavior. Pabau versus Pariba. Orderly versus seemingly chaotic. Before midnight and after midnight. So that is one form of pleasure as resistance. So I'm going to have a good time with my oil and my powder and my potty and my rum, while actually I'm critiquing the, let's say, the bourgeois class. The trailer in perfect chaos. Driver stop the trailer. So when the masses come together, the defiance of the police or the authorities is also a form of resistance. So when we're jamming going down the road, when you see the crowd of people, do you want this jam to stop? You know to say, hell no. So that means that I'm defiant, I'm enjoying myself, but I'm defiant. So you want to enclose me, actually describes it. Written by Black Diamond and performed by T-Money. Chris? So I'm going to show you the text, and the text states, from the time we hit the road, sidelining, plenty rum, the crowd done on the side, sidelining, obstructing justice in any way, don't care what the police say, they all love the band. When LG come down, young girls and boys down on the roadside, jumping over the barricade, this band is Aruban made. They all love the band. And then the chorus says, to all the supporters on the left side, we're going to show them love. To all the supporters on the right side, we're going to show them love too. Show me your hands if you're new here, so we could show them love too. And the ones who sidelining from a long time, we're going to show them love. So basically, this is an ode, and if I'm not mistaken, this song also won. T-Money won the crown with this song, which is a dedication actually to these group of carnavalistas, in a sense, that created their own space. So I'm going to leave it to here. And I know I've been talking quite a while, so I just want to finalize by just saying that these are a few examples that I've given on how pleasure can also be one of, let's say, a form of a critique, and perhaps maybe a more devastating form. And that when we look at, let's say, these performances during Carnival and so forth, there's so much actually we can see that takes place. Thank you.
Yes. Give it up for Dr. Gregory Richardson. Yeah, well deserved. I told you guys, the Bacchanal Space Lecture with Steel Band, Calypso, and Culture. So we come to the part where you can participate, and I hope you guys had made some notes and your questions at hand. So let's see by show of hands. I have a bright light in my face here, so I may not see the first one. Let's see who we got. Okay, we got someone, Lily. Let's pass over here.
Thank you. Greg, you have been talking about breaking away while we are actually not really free of. So my question would be, how can we really break away?
Okay. So stating that we're not really free would mean that we actually we take the position that we're actually, in a sense, trapped in perhaps language, or for example, or in some way or the other. Now, the psychoanalysts have always taught us actually that even though, quote unquote, we are, quote unquote, encapsulated or imprisoned in a certain way, and that is by means of language or by means of tradition, by different means, there are always moments in which we actually have moments of what I'm referring to as jouissance, moments of bliss, moments of escape. And that can be, different examples have been given. And in this case, the example that I'm giving here is basically the breakaway. And we make a distinguish between breakaway and the sweet breakaway. The sweet breakaway would be moments of absolute bliss during, for example, in the midst of a crowd, in which you have this climactic experience that you cannot explain. Perhaps it's a second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds, of a minute, but those moments psychoanalysts always refers to as moments of true freedom, in a sense. Because as we are born into language, in a sense. As soon as we learn to speak, we learn language, we learn words, and it would mean then that we actually are tied to language as, in a sense, in how we express ourselves. But there are also ways of expression, or at least feeling, that is beyond language. And the example that I'm giving actually by means of the breakaway is actually, yes, the escape from that encapsulated, enclosed, let's say, world that we're living in. And in the publication, The Sweet Breakaway, my latest publication, I give different examples of breakaway moments, for example, that people have experienced during Aruba's Carnival. And one of them is, for example, the performance of Mighty Cliffy, Roar on Fire. And so in the description, in the research that I've done, they would say that, yeah, that was a moment where people felt some type of trance. Yeah, it's like a trance-like state, perhaps, and that was not difficult to reproduce. Yeah. Okay? Yes.
All right.
Sonny?
Glenda, just a sec. Let's
what
get
I
a
would
mic
like
to
to
you.
mention is that a lot of us, Dr. Scotland start going down this when you bus macro, that part at 6 o'clock in the morning, every time the rain falls, and then it's a spiritual happening for a lot of us, and it's like you got wings, and then it's because the road is open, and then it's there you're going straight down, and it's like you're going delirious. Okay? That is for us, a lot of us, a breakaway.
Yes, that's a good example, I would say. Maybe you have time for maybe 1 or 2 more comments.
Okay, we have one over here, Greg.
I don't know if it's a question, actually. It's more observation. I'd like to take everyone a little back in time when, before the groove existed, he had a different band, also with Tony Mingo. And they had a song that was called Box Down Satan. And the police had to stop them from playing that song. No matter where, no matter how, anytime they started to play that song, everyone went in like a trance. So I saw it, I witnessed it, and I don't know what you can call that.
All right, thank you.
One more example of the breakaway, Greg?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have to leave it there, Greg, or we can take one more?
We can always talk after, because of course we have the main speaker for this evening. So I'll leave it to that, and thank you once more.
Yeah, Dr. Gregory Richardson, y'all. So right about now, we're going to take a short interlude. Those of you who haven't had your Johnny cake, we have a couple of Johnny cake with saltfish and Johnny cake with chicken. We also have some Morby, some sorrel, some ginger beer, and some sage and lime. So feel free, talk around among each other. We'll be back in 5 minutes or so. Okay, 1 or 2 songs. Just one sweet breakaway and we'll be right back.
Hey, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling nice, huh? Give me the bassline, give me the bassline. Bassline, 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 shower. Hey, pero pegou Mara, pegou Cera. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ayo, oh, na Vilena, a Vilena. Joining the jump, oh yeah, I tell you long time. People waiting to come together and have a good time. And jump in the line, hey, so they ask me, whoa, Casper, how you feel? Man, I'm feeling good, man, I'm feeling nice. Hey, let me hear you, oh, Casper, how you feel? Man, I'm feeling good, man, I'm feeling nice, so nice, so nice. Yeah, oh, it's Casper. Jump in the line, hey, so they ask me, whoa, that's how you man, I'm feeling good, man, I'm feeling nice, hey, let me hear you, oh, that's how you man, I'm feeling good, man, I'm feeling nice, 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 nice. Why yo, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling nice. Jamming back on the road. Raise the volume up and I overload. Carnavalesque across the line. Jamming my woman behind the back. Boy, I'm telling you, I'm feeling good. Jamming my soca sweet on the road. Man, I'm telling you, I'm feeling good. Jamming my soca sweet on the road. Hear me out. Jump, why you madam? Raise up your hand. Jump, why you madam? Raise up your hand. Jump, why you madam? Raise up your hand. Jump, why you madam? Jump, jump, jump. Oh, yo, 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 yo. Ay, 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 man, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling nice. Let me hear you. Oh, yo, 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 yo. Ay, 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 man, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling nice. Come again, come again. Feeling good. Cause we jamming down the road. Raise the volume up and I overload. Boy, I'm telling you, I'm feeling good. Jamming my soca sweet on the road. Feel the beat, the feeling is so sweet. Man, I tell you, I'm feeling good. Raise up, I say, raise up. Aruba in the heat, you can nobody see. Let me know, jump in the jump, while you wanna raise up your hand. Jump in the jump, while you wanna raise up your hand. Jump in the jump, while you wanna raise up your hand. Jump in the jump, while you wanna jump, jump, jump. Oh, yo, 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 yo. Ay, 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 man, I feel it. I feel it. Let me hear you. Oh, yo, 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 yo. Ay, 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 man, I feel it. Go. I feel it now. Why, yo? I feel it. Go. I feel it. Drive about, thank you. That's what there's something. Wow! Buon energy. Push on. Push it. Give me the rhythm. Give me the rhythm. Suave, suave, suave. Melody, 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 Push on. Hey, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling nice, huh? Give me the bassline, give me the bassline. Bassline, 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 push on. Hey, pero pegó Mara, pegó Cera. 1, 2, 3, 4. Adiós. Oh, la Vilena. La Vilena. Oh, la Vilena. La Vilena. Long time the people waited to come and party and join in the jump. And join in the jump. Oh, yeah, I tell you, long time the people waited to come together and have a good time. And jump in the line. Hey, so they say, whoa, that's for how you feel. Man, I'm feeling good. Man, I'm feeling nice. Hey, let me hear you. Oh, that's for how you feel. Man, I'm feeling good. Man, I'm feeling nice. So nice, so nice. Yeah. Oh, it's Gaspar. Ooh, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling nice. Come again, come again, come again. Long time the people waited to jump on the road. Jamming, feeling sweet. Jamming to the beat. Hey, I tell you, long time the people waited to come together to have a good time. And jump in the line. Hey, so they ask me, whoa, that's for how you feel. Man, I'm feeling good. Man, I'm feeling nice. Hey, let me hear you. Oh, that's for how you feel. Man, I'm feeling good.
Yes. So those of you who are standing, if you can make your way back, we're just about ready to go into the second phase for tonight. So I hope you guys, let's see, we got quite a few people still enjoying their Johnny cake or whatever beverages they had purchased. Let's see those who are making their way back to their seats and so forth, and we're keeping it short. The information is very short because we have a lot of information to disseminate, so we're going to jump back into it. And, like I said, make your notes, and right after our next presenter, you can always, we'll have a little Q&A, and we'll chop it up. So we're back again, the Bacchanal Space Lecture with steel band, calypso, and soca. And we had some bacchanal, some fire shots from Dr. Gregory Richardson. But right about now, this is a lady, one of our own, a daughter of the soil, from right here, as I like to say, Chocolate City, Sunrise City, San Nicolas. So, sometimes they say that the prophet is never honored in his own house. But in this house here tonight, I would like you all to, give her a warm and San Nicolas Chocolate City welcome home. Ladies and gentlemen, she's a musicologist, Dr. Charissa Granger. Please welcome her. Come on, give it up, because she is a tremendous speaker. All right? Thank you. Let's go. Oh. It's not on.
Good evening. Good noche. Thanks for the warmth. Thank you, Dr. Richardson, first of all, for organizing this evening and bringing us all together. It is necessary. My presentation this evening is entitled Notes on the Importance of Performance in Carnival. And that is what I want to stress, the importance of performance in Carnival. This presentation is dedicated to 4 Caribbean Black men. Dr. Winston the Shadow Bailey, who passed in 2018, Dr. Leroy Black Stalin Calist, who passed away last month, and my music teacher, Reverend Father Sidney Michael Jacob, without whom I would not know the steel pan, and finally, Conrad Granger, my father, who attuned my ears to this music at a young age and took me to the parades. High Mass, a praise, a prayer of intercession to the carnival gods, a mass as in a large number of people gathered, congregating, an undefined body of matter, a mass assembly, mass as in the act of worship, the community in a liturgical-like act, but also mass, as in masquerade, to revel, to jump up, to play mass, big trucks, high voltage, to supply amplifiers, bacchanal, jab, lavaways, panorama, stick fighting, old mass, dirty mass, pretty mass, juve, paint and oil, mud and powder, steel bands, calypso, road fire, road march, soca, tumba, the conch shell, the iron, the whistles, the potty, the nakedness, the politics of anything and everything goes. Anthems to get on bad and calls that champion recklessness and no behavior. The commitment to chaos and disorder, jumping up, whining and grinding. Mokojambi, rhythm section, saltfish and Johnny Cake. The rhythm, the magic, and the spectacular that shines through on Carnival Monday after Juve. The above evoke feelings of extreme ecstasy and wonder. I can feel the vibration of the big trucks. It hits the bottom of my belly, creating tension in my body as described by Calypsonian Shadow. I live with this ever-building tension for 2 weeks before Ash Wednesday. Early Monday morning, I am dancing in the streets covered in paint and mud as daybreak reveals the concealed performance of Juve. Sunrise represents Carnival Monday, and I am intoxicated by the bass of all the big trucks, the mass of people gathered, and the early morning libations. This is my mass. Lord Kitchener, Shadow, Sparrow, Calypso Rose. I had my favorite Calypsonians. This listening was mostly influenced by my father, Conrad Granger, and music teacher, Father Sidney Michael Jacob. The songs these Calypsonians sang directed me rhythmically and instructed me lyrically to roll and whine, to jump up and gyrate. Before I played steel pan, I danced, actually, in this building. This music defined the way I moved my body in every way. My peers listened to soca, Alison Hines and Crossfire, Onion, Burning Flames, TC and Super Blue. Mixed in with this calypso soca way of organizing my world was Bob Marley. This was my grandmother's influence, who gave me a Marley cassette tape which I would rewind with a pencil until it was destroyed. Buffalo Soldier, I Shot the Sheriff, Old Pirates, They Rob I, Sold I to the Merchant Ships. This was my first encounter with the slave ship and its hold. The ship and its hold have been carefully theorized. Specifically, the violent and catastrophic events of the slave ships, such as Zong and the recovery, have been considered. Scholars connect the movement in parading and dancing in the street during Carnival to the inability of movement and confinement on the slave ship. So then, according to Norbesi Philip, what links those enslaved people to those who parade during Carnival is movement, the ability and the inability of moving their bodies. Coming off the ship, their bodies continue to be controlled on the plantation system. Thus, Philip understands the sound of steel band as beating its way up and out the holds of slave ships. Drawing a line from slaving into the freedom of sound wrested from oil drums, she says. This line is marked by movement, which is what I want to attend to today. She says further, they are moving, and in the moving, they are defying the hold of the ship, rebelling against their ancestors is not moving. Rex Nettleford says, what I learned from the slave is that I can control my body. And I think this goes towards the question that was asked previously. Music movement, he says, this was outside the reach of the oppressor. This we could control. So then, how is performance in Carnival connected to a liberatory way of being and freedom? I concentrate on how performers physically move together to evoke freedom. According to Franz Fanon, Martinician philosopher, a national culture is the whole body of efforts made by people in the sphere of thought to describe, justify, and praise the action through which the people has created itself and keeps itself in existence. Today we'll discuss how movement enables self-determination in quest for liberation and in the face of unfulfilled promises of freedom. I specifically consider how the lyrical archive of calypso and soca demands movement, and how the sound and performance practice of steel band evokes movement. Music offers participants other ways of engaging beyond confinement, beyond the hold. Questions of the roles of pleasure, joy, and the erotic play in self-determination still remain infrequent in how we understand ourselves and how we understand our own freedom, but are important to further discussions of liberation and the importance of performance in Carnival. Liberation then is considered here as that which renders one freer, not free, but freer. Necessary for revolution and transgressive freedom in the face of unfreedom of coloniality, which brings with it poverty, low to no employment, sexual abuse, the extraction and destruction of natural resources.
This is Caribbean Vibe.
I come out to rock my body, oh yeah. Rock my body. I come out to rock this body. Rock this body. I've been working every day. I have a desire to play. I'm in a mood for happiness. I have no desire to rest. I'm feeling to rock my body, oh yeah. Rock my body. I'm feeling to rock this body. Rock this body. I come out to have a ball. Inviting you one and all. Break away, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Break away, break away, break away. Under orders, oh yeah, yeah. Under orders, up and moving. Dance, 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 dance.
This is
To break away under orders, come out to play, being under loving orders to break away, being compelled to move, jamming under one groove, inhabiting a space where you can swing the thing and feel the feelings, but also feel like Hulk, dismantling problems, where you can have an entanglement with devils and free up by playing the devil, which can potentially be an electric space where there is a temporary gush of freedom. Are there possibilities within the space to think freedom as unrestrained from the histories of property and confinement? For me, being a part of and embodying the bass, the scratcher, and the oil drum that make you jump up and make you hum is a liberatory way of being that is unmoored from the abyss of the hold of the ship. So today I will attend to what sometimes goes missing in the discussion, the interior life, beyond just fun, beyond just the fun of Carnival. Of course, Carnival is fun, but it's much more than that. So I draw on Hortense Spillers, a philosopher, and she says she is concerned with the intramural, the interior relations within the community, asking what is the community doing in relation to a perceived dominant force, and making clear that we've not done enough to work on the internal or the interior relations. So I am interested in the interior and what it what is being built, right? So attending to Calypso's lyrical and sonic summons to dance and move in different ways, I will meditate on Calypso music and how it demands that you take pleasure. It demands that you take pleasure. I will discuss how Calypso compels you to move, often while offering scathing social criticism and thereby evoking a liberatory way of being. I am attentive to the invitation that Calypsonians extend in their lyrics to move, to jam, to roll back and free up, as well as Calypso music's sonic insistence that participants accept that invitation under orders. So I played that last one to show how the crowd actually gathers around the steel band, how the crowd becomes part of the steel band. That was the first time in my entire experience of being around a steel band where I couldn't enter the band because the crowd was just, it was just a sea of people. So attempting to detail how self-determination is made possible in movement and how participants refashion themselves herein, I propose that both the music's insistence that we take pleasure and the way music makes us susceptible to movement enables an erotic and embodied way of knowing liberation, and thus our liberatory quest might be completed or possible. For Fanon, decolonization is a theory of self-determination. To this, I add self-knowledge, self-respect, self-possession, and self-ownership. Fanon is concerned with what it means to be completely human and how this is achieved in the process of decolonization. So he says decolonization is the veritable creation of new men. In sharing stories with revelers, with carnavalistas, the above creation occurs in different ways, in dancing, in moving, in sounding out the way the steel pan does. Playing, parading, gathering, and taking to the streets generate embodied responses where we can reimagine in various ways emancipation, freedom, liberation in the sensuous character of these practices. Ronaldo Walcott, theorist at Toronto University from the Caribbean, argues that emancipation, freedom, and liberation are not interchangeable and require further critical inquiry, further critical questioning. Music and dance, to me, might offer what Walcott suggests is needed, and I quote, a searing and engaged critique of their signifying intentions. What do they actually mean? What do we mean when we say we want to liberate or we're talking about freedom? Music, gyration, walking up, grinding, and whining evoke a freedom that is still beyond us, and that goes to the question that was posed earlier. And this erotic embodied way of being is crucial to us while we are in the ongoing time of emancipation, since music and dance enable important steps that need to be taken in this time. Again, self-knowledge, self-possession, and self-determination are vital steps that are the preconditions and remain important so that, as Walcott argues, emancipation might be read as a pathway for and towards freedom. But it is not freedom. Pathways and inroads are made towards freedom in our sounding out and our physical movement, parading and moving through the streets with a steel band or a big truck packed with high voltage speakers and amplifiers continues to add to a decolonial transatlantic aesthetic and embodied archive, authorizing and authoring a potential freedom to come, making a potential freedom to come. From this emerges a theory and a knowledge of jamming under one groove, which enables a reimagined transatlantic freedom evoked through dance and sounding out in our very own carnival. And this is the importance of performance in carnival. So I do not dismiss the rebelliousness of Boxdown Staton or a character of resistance. However, with this analysis, I want to offer another perspective that is a little attended to: pleasure and eroticism. Both are cogs in the wheel that move emancipation forward. Pleasure and erotics are needed in the ongoing struggles towards freedom. Calypso teaches us to live in pleasure, joy, and struggle. As Black Stalin says, black man got to keep on jamming for black man to get a little something. Moving together in dance while sounding out in this way enables a collective management, a way to reorganize our internal world, thereby creating communality. This communal life allows me to understand steel band performance, dancing, and moving as a decolonial doing and practice.
You get up one morning, your elders have something, you don't know how they get it, but you want to use it. But if you ask them old people to get the thing what they went through, ask them this any day, and them elders sure to say, black man got to keep on jamming, for black man to get a little something. Pick up your mind to work 10 times harder to get something because of your color. Black man got to keep on around and whip you, and then they free you. Black man got to keep on jamming. Black man to get a little something. So when you hear, you get a little something. With a four high friends, look your mark in, because you don't know already. Black man don't get nothing easy.
Dancing and moving offer the possibility to explore and assert our own way of evoking freedom surrounded by unfreedom. Music offers a way of re-existing outside of imposed socio-political and economic catastrophe in the face of violence, frighteningly high crime rates, baffling unemployment, and unequal wealth distribution. Dancing and sounding out is a way to re-exist outside the state and governance. This is made explicit in conversations and interviews with steel pan players. As the music summons us to jump and wave and to trample the stage, there is a general aesthetic disposition to move and groove.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
When West Indians come out to bed, bet you like they come out to bed. When they're ready to have a ball, it is the greatest thing in the world. They come out to move, they come out to groove. Everybody whining like robots malfunctioning. They come out to sway and sway and sway. When the party over, they're still crying out, we want more. More music, jam that music. More music, jam that music. We come out to free up, play the music, don't stop. We come out to Dingole, play the music all day. More music, jam that music. More music, jam that music.
More music, jam that music. We come out to free up, we come out to break away. It is a practice that includes love, joy, pleasure, and imagination, producing moments of radical freedom and ways to imagine and evoke freedom in the face of unfreedom. It is a way of reimagining and re-existing and remembering. In music scholarship, especially resistance, and this is not in critique to Dr. Richardson, especially resistance and protests are highlighted. Steel band, calypso, bachata, tambour, reggae, and a host of other Caribbean music vernaculars and practices are approached through an understanding of resistance music or protest songs, and the scholarship often ends right there. It is stagnant. According to Audre Lorde, feminist Caribbean scholar, the only way we can fight old power, she says, is by creating another whole structure that touches every aspect of our existence at the same time as we are resisting. Another aspect that touches our existence is pleasure and sensuous knowing and being in the world through movement. Pleasure and joy, jamming and breaking away are the ways in which we organize ourselves and are self-empowered. The road is dominated by soca. However, occasionally, the DJ will put on a calypso of yesteryear. And on this rare occasion, the crowd gets elated by recognition. For me and other revelers, the sound of calypso and soca, the bass keeps us moving. The tempo of soca does the same, but it is not just the bass. It is also the sound areas, other sound areas like rhythm that keeps me and others whining. Take, for instance, that Soca Boat by Chado.
He said he is the soca king. I can't make with the soca thing. I call the mental hospital. Come quick to avoid a funeral. A man came in my house to beat me. He came in my house to fight me. I belong to the house of music. He's either crazy or real sick. But I don't want to sing that soca boat. I don't want to sing that soca boat. Just don't want to sing that soca boat. I don't want to sing that soca boat.
I belong to the house of music. The bass line is syncopated in two very similar lines that repeat unchanged for the entirety of the song. The repetition of the same revelatory, right, enabling other areas such as the iron to emerge. The percussive motivation of the rhythm moves us forward while the repetitive bass holds us in place. Repetition gives way to other possibilities, to linger, to loiter, and to feel. Suspended in its incessance, the rhythm opens a space for you to do your do. This is when revelers will stop arrested in the large moving masses to wind down before moving forward. The music insists that you dance, Earl Lovelace, and a minimalist bass line makes you rock your body. I feel now the philosophy of Shadow, which is really about feeling the feelings. Shadow's music, among a host of other equally great soca singers and calypsonians, move us by the beat, the groove, the lyrics, in force of the rhythm and the mobilization of the iron, the congas, and the bouncing bass, opening a kind of liberatory way of being. I am informed by this sound and the music and this world of soca and calypso rhythm, a world generative of its own knowledge, its own style, ways of moving physically, and embodied ways of being. The drums and the bass are foundational in calypso music. The drums and the bass is, according to Shadow, what makes people move. That is where the feelings are, he said, the feelings to make you dance. The drums and the bass render me and other revelers infinitely more susceptible to the pleasure that Dr. Richardson was talking about. Lyrically, the emphasis to move and the instruction on how to move is described in great detail. Lord Kitchener, for instance, asks us to roll your abdomen. Shadow makes us prance and dance as he exclaims, I feelin' to rock my body. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. In 1995, Stalin emphasized the black man got to keep on jamming, again for the black man to get a little something, instructing us to keep on jamming. From getting licks from the slave master, he says, to becoming the landowner is a terrible journey, packed with plenty brutality, but yet black man got to keep on jamming. Through this terrible journey, we must keep on jamming, which is a futurist outlook. In more recent soca lyrics, Ultimate Rejects, in the face of coloniality, sings about the city could burn down, but we jamming still. The buildings can fall down, but we jamming still. Just hold them and walk them.
celebration. No matter we promote a fete, and you will see how we go party to the full extreme and light it up with kerosene. Oh God, the treasury could burn down. We jamming still, we jamming still. Economy could fall down. We jamming still, we jamming. Just hold them and walk them, hold them and walk them, hold them and walk them, hold them and walk them.
Obviously a popular one. That goes on for 8 more minutes. So the song gives tempo and lyrics that demand that you keep jamming, following a lineage of historical calypsos that impresses upon us the importance of jamming, which brings me back to Shadow, singing about the sweetness of music and movement. If your clothes tear up or your shoe bursts up, you can still jump up when music playing. Old lady, young baby, everybody can dingole. This emphasis on movement and its liberatory potential move out of the music realm into literature too. In the Dragon Can't Dance, Earl Lovelace connects dance to humanness, and his poesis embraces dance. He says, dance. This is dancing in calypso. Dance. If the words mourn the death of a neighbor, the music insists that you dance. If it tells the troubles of a brother, the music says dance. Dance to the hurt, dance. If you are catching hell, dance, and the government don't care, dance. Your woman take your money and run away with another man, dance. Dance, dance, dance. It is in dancing that you ward off evil, he says. Dance, dance, dance. Carnival brings this dancing to every crevice, end quote. Earl Lovelace, The Dragon Can Dance. In the examples outlined so far, the invitation to move comes in the form of a textual as well as a sonic call. These are liberatory ways of being. In steel band, dance moves occur organically during nightly rehearsals. They are minimally choreographed. Playing with a panorama steel orchestra, my whole body is in movement, not always necessarily dancing, but jumping and spinning and jostling. Poly movement is characteristic of most of the dances, where different parts of the body move independently in different ways, but maintaining the whole. Some players have more foot action, others have more hip, abdomen, and waist rolls. Yet as an individual, as our movements are, the orchestra moves as one. So the physicality of the players is important to the music's aesthetic. Through physical movement, players convey energy and vigor, as you can see, displaying joy and pleasure. Some of us manage to break a sweat during the performance of the 8-minute piece when a particular player breaks away and from the collective movement. We can explore ourselves, illustrating our own style. Rinaldo Walcott says freedom marks a certain kind of sovereignty over the self in relation to collective and communal conditions. In the context of unfreedom, he says, we can glimpse modes of unauthorized being as self-authored acts pointing to or authorizing a potential freedom to come. Here I am thinking, he says, of the ways black people break the rules, authorizing for themselves new ways of being in the world. Audre Lorde approaches the erotic as a critical way of sourcing self-knowledge. She asks, what is at risk when the power of the erotic is silenced? And here, again, I emphasize the importance of performance in Carnival, where we cannot allow the power of the erotic to be silenced because it is important. Among the ways that Audre Lorde outlines the erotic functioning is the open and fearless underlining of my capacity for joy. That is the pleasure that Dr. Richardson was just talking about, in the way my body stretches to music and opens into response, hearkening to its deepest rhythms. So every level upon which I sense also opens to the erotically satisfying experience. So, reflecting on my young feelings of liberation, I attempt to make sense of how embodiment is a mode through which to consider movement as a quest for liberty, even while we are encircled by unfreedom, or might be encircled by unfreedom. So music makes this liberatory mode of existence possible. That is a way of being that is in the service and pursuit of a liberation project, as physical movement is political and a source of power. Lastly, Audre Lorde, she says, once we begin to feel, we begin to demand from ourselves and from our life pursuits that they feel in accordance with that joy that we felt before, which we know ourselves to be capable of. Our erotic knowledge, she says, empowers us and becomes a lens through which we scrutinize all aspects of our lives. In other words, there is knowledge in the erotic power that emerges in Carnival, in the performances of Carnival, in Calypso, in the music, in gyrating, rolling abdomens, and swinging hips. This movement then enables self-determination and knowledge. This is an internal, sensuous, and embodied knowledge. So, to conclude, self-determination and self-ownership in the quest and reach for liberation in the long ongoing emancipation can be approached and considered for the possibilities, however short or fleeting or small, of attaining freedom under subjugation. Or, following Lorde, the power of the erotic within our lives can give us the energy to pursue genuine change within the world, the energy to pursue genuine change within the world, rather than merely settling for a shift of characters in the same weary drama. Music making, dance, parading, and performance can potentially strengthen that quest towards liberation, and thus making a sense of liberation realizable and tenable, that is, to possibly unleash freedom from the history of property that secured it, as Saidiya Hartman says. Concluding, music, gyration, walking up, grinding, and whining do not just evoke freedom, but a freedom that is still beyond us. And therefore, this erotic embodied way of being is crucial to us, given that we are in the ongoing time of emancipation. To put it in Walcott's words, music and dance, as well as parading and moving through the streets with a steel band or a big truck packed with high voltage speakers and amplifiers, thus continue to add to a decolonial transatlantic aesthetic, authorizing and authoring, that is, writing our own script, our own story, a potential freedom to come. From this emerges a theory and a knowledge of jamming under one groove, which enables a reimagined transatlantic Aruban freedom evoked through dance, movement, and music.
Yeah. I told you guys you were powerful. Give it up, give it up, give it up for Dr. Granger. So we're going to take a couple of questions. We'll try and make it a short because, we have one more lineup in the back there. So let me see by show of hands. After all that information, I don't know how many questions we might have, but let's see. We start out with Miss Lily.
Thank you, Charisse. My question to you is this. You said through jamming, we can become more liberated. And Carnival only takes place once a year. How can we make it a more continuous...
She want more jamming?
So basically you want a year-long jam?
Yeah.
I mean, I think these things have to also happen outside of the confines of that prescribed temporal, the season, outside of the season. It can happen. I know a lot of people that take time and go up to where they need to go so that they can have a carnival, right? I know for some people, carnival does not end. It is a way of life. It's a methodology. During COVID times, we saw it. Folks did not have their juve, but they took their little JBLs and they had a solitary juve, right? So I mean, I think these things we need to kind of look outside of the bounds and to see what is possible outside of it and to see what is necessary for us. I mean, most of these steel bands, they have pan sides, right? And they gather in the pan yard throughout the year, right? So there's always that ongoing engagement with the Carnavalesque that Dr. Richardson described and talked about. And I would add as well that you take it with you, right? And that's following Audre Lorde. Once you have that feeling of what it means to jam a juve, right, and to play mud mass or play powder and paint, you take that with you for the rest of the year. There are also people, one of them sitting in the crowd, who travel the carnival circuit, right? They go to St. Kitts when it's there. They go to St. Martin when that's happening. They go to Trinidad when that's happening. And there's a group of people who make the carnival circuit, And I know that financially that's not tenable, but there are different ways that people seek out the Carnavalesque in their everyday lives throughout the year.
Thank you. Anyone else? Let's see. Where? I heard a yes, but I didn't see who. Can you raise your hand, please? Guess not. So you guys are full, satisfied, it would seem. Music sweet. Yeah. Dingole. So we're not going to do a little dingole or nothing? Let's see. Anyone else, please? Okay, way down in the back. And I see the corridor is closed up, so I will have to go around. Let me see. Yeah. Let me make my way down this side. Oh, yeah. Okay. Truck, how things, buddy? I gotta come around. Here we go. All right, Miss Midair.
Yes. Okay, good evening. After hearing both of the speakers, I came to the conclusion that if there was no carnival, that could eventually lead to a revolution. Do you share that opinion, or am I just getting too excited here?
If there were no carnival?
Would that lead to a revolution?
Since what has been said is that carnival takes the lid off, it's a way of expression, it's a way of revolting, but in a more compact or select way. So if there would be no carnival at all, would that mean that the people would become so frustrated that it would lead to a revolution?
No, I don't think that's the case. And we have an example of that. I mean, we have COVID, right? When, for at least a year, for some places 2 years, where carnival was suspended, right? But during that suspension, you saw that, again, people still practice, right? It went online, right? Panorama still happened, right? The savannah was still packed. There were pods. So it's going to, in following Calypso Rose, she says, you cannot contain me. I'm like a bank overflowing. I'm going to burst your boundaries. So I don't think that revolution will come about like that. I think it actually will I think it actually comes about during and in Carnival through some of the things that Dr. Richardson outlined. Yeah. I think people find a way, and they do it anyway. Yeah, I mean, you can think about our history, right, and where the steel pan actually comes from, right? It comes from restriction, right, and people found another way. It comes from, the containment and the banning and the sanctions, governmental law book sanctions on drumming, right? And what did people do? They reinvented an instrument, the only instrument created in the 20th century, right? So we'll find a way, make a plan.
Yeah. One more. Down on the back here. Mr. Lee.
Good night, good night, good night. I have one question here. You talk about ownership, and I noticed that a lot of musicians are lacking ownership of their lyrics, songs, and at this moment, I don't think we even have a database of the songs that have played for nearly 70 years. What can we do about that? That'll be a question for Greg and you.
We going to the archives, Greg? Sad to say we lost one of the persons who usually would have many of those songs documented. Roberto Ahelman. Yeah, he was one of those. I know many DJs who would go by him to get music. Take it away, Greg.
This is sadly not the only example that we have. Let's say that the example that we have in Aruba is not the only example. So you see this also among many musicians around the world, and specifically of, let's say, African descent. And oftentimes they would be the ones who actually produce the music, but not the ones who actually participated in the process. So yeah, there's of course a consciousness that has to come about. And also we have to organize ourselves as well, in which we, there's enough people who, or there's enough knowledge out there, and I think organizing ourselves is one thing, and coming together and realizing that everyone, for example, has their own expertise, and once you can collectively come together, I think that's one of the steps you can take in that process. So, I don't know.
I'll just say something short. I think we need to look at other genres and how other genres operate, right? We have people like Chance the Rapper who are completely self-sufficient. We have people like Kendrick Lamar who are completely self-sufficient, right? They're not tied to any sort of label, and they own their own productions, right? So, you know, how can we actually learn from that?
Yes, I get the signal from the boss man himself, so we have to leave it around there. We probably would have to move some of the instruments around to get the next act on the road for safety reasons. We got some water coming in, and water and oil don't mix, so imagine water and electricity. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Richardson to, just to recognize some of the sponsors and so forth, and while the next act gets set up. All right? Just set.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Sonny, and thanks everyone for coming out this evening. Of course, I would like to invite everyone, of course, to stay a bit longer when the music plays. So they just have to move over the instrument inside. So we create a nice ambiance inside. But before we do that, I would like to give a special thanks to several organizations that have supported this project. So as I mentioned already, this is the 7th year that we're organizing this. And this could have been the 9th if it were not for the pandemic. But of course, we want to give a special thanks to the University of Aruba. I don't know if there's a representative of the University of Aruba here. All right, Charissa, thanks so much for the support. And I think the collaboration is very important. And what we feel, the community research and for education and development project, what we feel is very important is that is a collaboration and also an outreach to the community, and especially in these types of matters, and specifically the Center for Lifelong Learning. I think this is one of the avenues that we can do this. Of course, I also want to thank my own werkgever, the IPA. Also, the Musica, my good brother, Sonny Joseph Richardson and Celeste Richardson Woodley from We Culture, without whom I don't think we would have been able to organize this project, so thanks to them. And of course, the project that Charissa and I are actually involved in, which is the Islanders at the Helm, and this is also part of that project as well. We've also received some support of SMAC, my good friend JP van der Hans Bacchanal. Yes, thank you so much. Giovanni Muller and Tele Aruba. And Uni Arte. So I want to recognize also our good friend and colleague Charissa Manuelson, who helped us behind the scenes in this project. And last but not least, our own massive 103.5 FM. Thank you so much. Yes, of course, and as I said, I want to, so as they set up and get ready to play, of course, we have Rusman Sunny Juices, and we also have, I think the food finished. All right, that's a good sign. All right, thanks so much. All right, good evening.
Yeah, Mama's Johnny Cake. I think it's all in the stomach now. We still got some juice left, some sage and lime, some sorrel, some ginger beer. And while we get ready for the next act, we're going to have one song from Rude Boy. You're going to do something there for us to keep us busy in a while. And we'll get to it. Let's conversate among ourselves. Don't let the conversation end there. And we're going to get right to it. How long?
Resta 5 dias.
What? Let me see.
Tonight we going and have some fun. I just feel it to party the way we used to when we was young. Just put on something sexy so you'll be free to move around. Make sure your children okay. We ain't coming home until morning comes. Tonight the black man feeling the party. Tonight the black man feeling the jam, 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 jam. Tonight the black man just feels the boogie, woogie. Come on, hold on to your man and let me do a little oh.
Good boy. Yeah, so once again, thanks to each and everyone. And I'm going to leave you guys in the hands of the boys them. Henny, Flip, and the rest. They're going to take you guys out to the night. So, you know, hang around. Don't leave yet. Have some conversation, and we get to the Bacchanal part, some music for you guys, for your listening pleasure. All right? Thank you.